So I'm going to be reviving today for one episode. I'm not sure if there are going to be more. My Woolly News series that have been on the wayside for quite some time now because there are two major news in the wool and knitting communities that I would like to be talking about. So hello everyone, welcome or welcome back to my very small place on the internet where I talk about my knitting life and my knitting adventures. And today it's gonna be an episode about my Woolly News series. Last episode was in last October 2023, and I used to film about one episode a month about the Woolly News series, and I was not having enough time to collect all the data and information that I wanted to be talking about. That was the first reason why I sort of stopped making videos on this playlist to feed this playlist. And second, at some point, I got access to the community tab on YouTube, and that kind of fulfilled my need for the Woolly News. That was to give you some information that I had gathered here and there, and that was of some interest to me, and that I thought was maybe of some interest to you. And there are two major news today that I would be talking about. And as a disclaimer, I am not a journalist, so this is just my own take on things I've seen. This is not a deep analysis. This is not a journalist article, not at all. Just something that maybe you would be interested into, and maybe some things you can be thinking about, maybe. And so this is the 29th episode of this series, and as I said, last episode was 6 months ago in October. So I'm not sure I'm gonna be making any other episodes in the future. Maybe I will. And I think I have forgotten to say that my name is Isabelle. I am in France. I was already bubbling towards what I wanted to be telling you. So I am in France. I knit. I am a knitter, and I have this very small place on the internet where I talk about everything that is knitting related. And I think these two pieces of information are going to be of some interest to you. If they are, or if this subject kind of grabs your attention, please stay tuned. Okay, so first, what am I wearing? I'm going to be sounding repetitive because you've seen my Madeleine sweater by Sumin Kim not that long ago. Today, the sun is playing with us in and out. We've had horrible weather and cold weather and lots of rain, and we still have rain scheduled by the end of the week. And the forecast says that next week the summer and warmer weather is there to be for good, and we'll have at least a spring or early summer. Weather forecast is not an exact science, so take that, and I take that with a grain of salt. So for now, my Madeleine sweater, because we had mid temperatures, and this morning it was a bit cold, and I did wear it with, I'm taking it out because I would be too warm right now, with my elven shawl. My sons gave me the kit to knit so the Madeleine sweater, I knit it last year, if I recall correctly, and as I do not recall correctly, I'm going to be checking. Yes, in spring of 2022, no, 2 years ago. The elven shawl, my sons gifted me with, for Christmas 2020, with the kit and the pattern for this shawl. It's a Florence Sperling shawl, a Florence Sperling pattern, and a cotton kit. It's the exact yarn that she used for the sample. So it's intarsia and bubbles, and it's not very deep and quite elongated shawl. I like that way. I don't like big triangular shawls that are always too deep in the back. So I was wearing my elvan shawl, and I was also wearing my cool jacket by Neringa Rouquet that I knit in 2020. This one is the one that I knit in 2020. And I really love this jacket. I made it with yarn that I got in the Pyrenees, very rustic yarn. It was the last skeins of yarn that this mill from the Pyrenees that closed had produced, and the mill was closed for several years when I went there for the first time, and the lady still had skeins that her father had made. And if you recall, or you may not recall, I had knit the color quite high, and it was like a vampire. It was making like a vampire color on this jacket that I love a lot, and that I wear in the intermediate seasons where it's not too warm, not too cold, a bit windy, because it's quickly quite warm. So I already unraveled a couple of weeks ago. I unraveled the collar to make it shorter. And what I did, and this I did not fix because I do not think there is any way to be fixing it easily, and I need to do something about that. I made some kind of a cord with the yarn, and I placed that cord at the base of the collar to make it a bit more snug so that it stays on me the way it should, because otherwise it was drooping off my shoulders and I did not like that. And this yarn is quite rustic, it's held double, and it was 12 millimeter needles, so I'll check the equivalent in the US sizes. And what I liked a lot is this, it's stockinette, and it's this row of garter that you have here at the top of the jacket and in the back, and it's quite cropped and boxy, and I very much like the look of this jacket. I could have made a bit longer sleeves. I'm not gonna do them again. I'm just wearing it that way. And it's perfect for this transition season. And sometimes I wear it at home when it's a bit too cold and I don't have a shawl or something. Yes, my cool jacket by Neringa Rouquet, and I really much like a lot the look and feeling of it. Okay, so just so you can see, I'm standing up. Of course, I was in jeans when I went to work this morning, and I took them off for wearing my sweatpants that are a bit more comfortable. No buttons, integrated finish everywhere, and this kind of boxy and cropped line that I like a lot. Okay, the first piece of news or information that I would like to be talking about, and I've already pushed it through my community tab, and if you are subscribed to my channel, you are notified when I push such kind of news into my community tab. It's always a good deal or a bargain or some free pattern for a limited amount of time or things like that. I do not push sales or stuff like that because I don't want to be the one influencing you into buying and buying and buying, because I have a yarn no buy year project that covers a bit more than just yarn, and with some rules and regulations for myself. So I don't want to be the one influencing you into buying and buying and buying and buying. So what I push to my community tab are some good deals, free patterns, stuff like that. Something that you can get for free for a limited amount of time. Let's say that way. So, so this news, I pushed it to my community tab when I first saw it, and it was on May 17th when I received the email, is that Espace Tricot is going to change their policy about their patterns. I really love Espace Tricot because they are a yarn store in Montreal, and they used to be publishing very, very interesting patterns for free. And of course, it was some kind of a model where they would make patterns for free with their own yarn. And people would come to their store and maybe buy the yarn and get the pattern to make what they had made because they were influenced and had inspiration and stuff like that. And they would have a yarn line on their own that they would own, and that were making and dyeing yarn for their store, and also they were selling other type of yarn. And they have a very large library of free patterns that are commercial grade. They are tested. Some of them have thousands of projects, maybe not thousands, hundreds. I would say hundreds, I'm sure, and some I haven't checked. But looks to me like many people have made some of their patterns. They have sweaters with a large size range, they have shawls, they have hats and stuff like that. All of that for free. And so the owners of Espace Tricot at some point, and I will write down because I haven't checked when it was, sold the store to two other persons who took over Espace Tricot and the project and the YouTube channel and everything. And Melissa was one of the previous owner, is still making yarn, dyeing yarn, and her line is very successful. And Lucia, I think her name is, I will write it down below too, has moved on to some other things, photography and things like that. And I'm still following her on Instagram and following her work. And the two persons who took over Espace Tricot have continued to make patterns, some of them for free, some of them paid for. And they just recently published a book with Laine magazine, Yarn from the LYS, where they have a whole collection of patterns that they have made themselves. Okay, good. What will change starting May 24th, and this is the day you are going to be viewing this video, and if you're not subscribed, you haven't seen my community post that I posted a week ago about that news. They are moving, I'm quoting their email, a number of our patterns to a paid model. And so all the Espace Tricot graded multi-sized garments, so I guess if there is a shawl that is only one size, it's not concerned, but I'm not sure. So all of their graded pattern, multi-sized pattern, published a year or more ago, will be individually paid for download or contained in ebooks. And they say that as you are a subscriber of our mailing list, you get the info first. And they say that you can download the patterns now before they move to a paid model the day you are going to be viewing this video. So I have no comment, or maybe I do, but it's their store. They do what they want. You do you. I usually say that you do you, and if they want to move to a paid model for their patterns, that's their right, and they do whatever they want. I just have a couple comments to make on that. First, they were one of the first sweaters and one of the first patterns I knit when I discovered Ravelry one of their free patterns. And I do understand you need to make money and that's their job. I do understand that. And I also understand many people do not have the resources or the money to buy patterns in addition to buying yarn. And I really enjoyed their free patterns because it gave me the opportunity to knit things that allowed me to move to other things. And also, this is the way I learned all the English terminology in knitting, because as they are publishing their patterns both in French and in English, I could compare the two and quickly learn all the code and all the terminology and everything. So they are part of my history, my knitting history, and they would not have been as much part of it if they were on a paid model. And my knitting history would have been different if I had to learn all the English terminology elsewhere. I did learn with them, so they are part of my history. So that's my first point. I'm kind of sad they are moving to a paid model, even though they are free to do whatever they want. Once again, kind of sad because they were having a special place in my heart, and I think in the knitting community as a company supporting knitters and giving away free professionally graded patterns. Okay. The second thing I would like to be talking about is that one thing that bothers me, and once again, they do whatever they want. If they are changing their model, I would have expected they change it for all the future patterns, of the patterns that they will publish next. As an example, if my government change the taxes regulations, for example, they do it that day further on. They don't retro change the rules and regulations. And I would have expected that all the previously free published patterns would remain free, and I would have better understood they say, okay, all of our future patterns are going to be moving to a paid model. That would have been fine to me. I would not have thought much about it. Maybe I would have said, okay, it's a pain, maybe I would have said, okay, it's a shame, whatever. But changing all the previously published patterns is a bit strange to me. To go through all their own library and changing everything to a paid model. Okay, so only the graded patterns, yeah. So, but that bothers me a bit. And of course, once again, they do the way they want because it's their company, it's their Ravelry store, and it's their intellectual property. And the thing is, a lot of free patterns have been created by the previous owners, so I guess they've worked it out. I'm not saying that they have not. But the spirit of what used to be Espace Tricot is going to be changing, and maybe this is what bothers me, or a bit, not necessarily bothering me, but makes me a bit sad. Anyway, when you see this video, it's going to be May 24th. And maybe it's too late already for you to download all the patterns that you were interested in before the deadline, before they move it to the paid model. So all I can say is please subscribe to my channel so that you get notified whenever I push such a news into my community tab. So I guess Ramses wants to stay close. So the next news I would like to be talking about is about Laine or Laine magazine, or I should say Laine Publishing. I had never really paid attention to that. I just saw the two pieces of information going into the mailing list. There are birds. So go get the birds. Go see the birds. They also pushed the information to their mailing list, and I thought that was very interesting. The first thing is they have a journal or some kind of a blog. The first thing is that they made a survey, and they published, it was May 10th. They published the result of the knitting survey, and it's quite interesting. I'm going to link everything down below once again, but they had a big survey, some kind of demographics and on knitters and why people do knit and everything. And so they had a lot of answers. They had 4,433 answers to their survey, which is quite a lot. And they said that about 96 of the people who answered the survey used the pronouns her or she. And the largest group was 55 to 64 years, 26% of the people who answered the survey. I'm in that group, I'm in the majority. I'm in the majority. So there were 45 to 54 is 21%, and 35 to 44 is 19%. So I'm not going to be detailing all the information that is on this survey, and I'm going to link it down below so that you can see what the whole results are. And there are some things that just caught my attention. Yeah, you want my hand. So people said that they were having several hobbies, several other hobbies other than just knitting. And 60% of the people answered it was sewing. And I would have guessed it was crochet. No, it was sewing. And crochet is the second one with 53%. So, and then you have embroidery, quilting, and weaving. And so that was very interesting to me because that was not what I was expecting. And people said they were more a process knitter than a finished object or product knitter. If you want to accept that we can categorize knitters in these very two broad categories that are very restrictive anyway. And I consider myself more of a product knitter. And this is why I am mostly a monogamous knitter, because I want the end product. I want the finished object. So I work on it, and I have a couple work in progress in parallel, usually one that is more complicated and that needs more attention, and one that is more easy and goes more quickly and needs less attention and allows to be TV knitting or other things like that. But you know, I'm not in the majority in that regard, so you can check where you are regarding that point. And also I'm not in the majority because I usually finish everything that I cast on. My longest work in progress was a year long, and I finished it for several reasons. And you always have good reasons not to finish some project, but I usually finish my projects. And 26% of the people said they were finishing all of their projects, and 66% most of them. So that means that more than half of the knitters do not finish all of their projects. So a lot of people said also they were knitting for well-being. So you have quotes from people who've answered the form. And people mostly, the favorite piece that people knit is sweaters, then shawls and scarves, then socks, then cardigans, then hats. So maybe for myself, I would place hat above cardigans because I very, very rarely knit cardigans, and I've knit more hats than cardigans. But I'm kind of the average two there. When it comes to the favorite patterns, type of patterns, people prefer color work. And then textural stitch patterns, then cables, then lace, then stockinette. And I'm not sure I have a favorite knitting experience or knitting pattern style. It all depends the mood or the state of mind I'm in. And maybe at some point I will want some plain stockinette because my mind is too full, or I want to relax, or I'm too tensed, or I'm too anxious for other things in my life, and I just want plain stockinette. And sometimes when I want a challenge, I prefer a stitch pattern rather over color work. Usually, I'm not sure, I should look at my library and things I've made. Maybe it's half and half. So people usually go top down, and I know that it's now my way to be knitting sweaters. Even though when I first started to knit years and years ago, and 55 years ago, most probably over 50 years ago, I would knit bottom up and sew all of the pieces. So I'm not afraid of knitting in pieces and sewing all the pieces. Just the offer of top-down sweaters is so large right now. It's so big, and there are so many patterns that I love that when I want to knit a sweater, and the last one that I've casted on is once again a top-down sweater. So it's just the way it is, and to me, it's not one piece of information I'm going to choose a pattern upon. If it's bottom up, fine. If it's top down, fine. I know how to do both. And people usually do also German short rows that as a technique, side techniques, or an experimental or a more difficult technique that they use, and then provisional cast-ons, then through-needle bind-offs, and grafting and sticking. 36% of people have used sticking in their knitting. I have done none, and I still have to put that technique into my knitting bag. I haven't used a stick pattern thus far, and I'm quite afraid, because one thing I love with knitting is that you can unravel when things go wrong. So, or if you don't like them anymore, and when a garment is sticked, it's there to stay the way it is. You can't unravel a sticked garment, or you can unravel it, but you lose all the pieces of yarn. And 48% of people use printed patterns. I usually do so too, because I learned with paper and pen to write all my rows and everything I do, and I have a notebook, and that is almost completely full, and I need to move to another one, and I have another one that my sister-in-law got me for Christmas. And so I tried all the different applications, the most common ones, and even in the free versions, so that I can test, and I know it's not for me. It's not for me. I like to write, and I like to write with a paper and a pen, and I like to read books in paper because I like the smell of the books and also the way the printed letters are and the printed patterns are on paper. This is also why I usually buy a lot of knitting books because I just love books. I just love books. And 32% said they prefer the digital patterns. When the rest of the, so that's about another third that says they don't have any preference. And I do have preference to a printed pattern. But what I usually do is I print 2 pages on 1 page to save paper. And if I really need some part that needs to be printed out a bit bigger because I don't see what's there or the charts are too small and everything, I just print that 1 page or that 1 chart or these couple charts so that I can see better what is on the charts. But I do need the paper. I do need the paper. And most people who answered the survey, almost 90% of them are following people on Instagram or on social media, I should say. Social media, because YouTube is also a social media. Now, same thing, almost 90% of people use online videos when they need some help. And I know there are excellent YouTube videos and Instagram how-tos that you can check whenever you have a question. And the very big difference between when I started to knit and now is that now when you start knitting, you can learn by yourself just by watching videos. And not just knitting about anything, you can teach yourself on videos and online. So, but of course, you have to be tech savvy for that. What can I say that is of some interest? Yeah, stash or not stash. So you know that I am not comfortable with my stash and I want to be knitting through my stash, and I have a project for knitting through my stash and not buying yarn, even though yarn is a sneaky animal and finds its way to me. I'm very happy about that. But I prefer to be mindful about what I buy, and I needed to force myself into being mindful about what I was buying because I was just buying way too much, way more than I can knit. So I really want to focus on to mindful buying yarn for some reasons, and I have boundaries and quantities I can buy for a year because otherwise I know I'm going to go overboard. And people say that 56% of them usually buy yarn with a specific project in mind, and 44% for their stash, not quite knowing what they are going to be doing with it. So you see, it's quite half and half once again. And it's very interesting to see that people enjoy buying yarn just for their stash and just to have and to pet them and touch them and smell them and knowing they are here and that they can knit from it. The one thing that is uncomfortable for me, for myself, is that I was ever growing my stash without ever going to it because there was always a new yarn and new pattern and new things, and I was always bubbling at the top of the new. So this is why I have this project, and you most probably know that I'm knitting Yara that has been for over 2 years in my Ravelry library, and with yarn that has been for over 2 years in my stash for that pattern. So I'm slowly getting to it because, as I said, yarn is a sneaky animal and can't find its way all by itself to me. And 97% of the people use mostly animal-based fibers, so wool, merino, cashmere when knitting. 2% use plant-based fibers, so that's cotton, linen, hemp, and the rest synthetic fibers. And Last weekend I was at a friend. She unfortunately lost her father and she was in need of comforting and talking, and so I went there, and she said she had picked up knitting in the last year. I did not know, and she knew I was knitting, and so I told her, well, you should come with me at the knitting cafe on 2 Sunday afternoon per month. So she's gonna be coming, and she knits only with acrylic because she has allergy. She's allergic to about everything, and it's quite unfortunate for her because she has food allergies, contact allergies, breathing allergies. Anyway, so she needs mostly acrylic, and she taught herself on YouTube and on blogs, and she's been making little tops, easy things, snoods and scarves and hats. And I told her, well, you need to come with me so that you can see what other people are making and how other people are making it, and we can talk about it, and you can expand your knitting experience that way. So, some people knit with only acrylic fiber because, or acrylic material, because they can't knit with yarn, and cotton and linen, and it's quite stiff and it's quite sturdy, and she's made a top with cotton, and she said it was very hard for her to knit with only cotton. So I said, maybe you can find some blend with some acrylic that would make the fiber a bit more elastic and a bit less hard to be knitting. And 44 people prefer fingering, and the next one is decay, and the next one is sport. I'm completely into that realm. My favorite yarn weight is sports, but decay and fingering are close to sports weight, and I really do enjoy that. I don't like the bulkier and the heavier yarn weights. Sustainable choices. 44% said that the sustainability aspects are very important, and so I completely fit into that kind of remark, or that kind of category. And some people say 47 bought yarn second hand to unravel and make other things. 71% have unraveled to knit and reuse the yarn. I do that. And 71 have mended their own knits. And I haven't mended my own knits because I haven't had any opportunity to do so yet, but I will. If one piece I like and is fixable, if there is a hole or something and it's fixable, I will fix it. I will make it wearable again. If I don't like it, I will unravel, wash the yarn and reuse the yarn. So I will leave. I said I wasn't going to talk about the whole survey, but unfortunately I did. So I will leave the link to the survey down below so that you can have a look for yourself and see a bit more of everything. I really appreciated they did have that survey, because it's extremely informative about what the knitting community is, and most probably is also so that they can direct their own activity and patterns and books and stuff like that more towards what people do and what people prefer. Let's say, for example, patterns with fingering to sports weight rather than chunky yarn, maybe, or even worsted. And so they can maybe redirect their own activity towards what people like. And in another way, I'm not sure there have been many such surveys that have been published, and at least this one is up to date and was quite complete with a lot of questions that were very interesting. And I really appreciated that. Okay, next is a shorter article on Laine Publishing blog, or journal as they call it. It's an article about AI and how AI will change the world of knitting. And this is a question that is of much interest to me, because I'm currently working on how AI is going to change the teaching at university, because this is my own work field. But it's going to be changing a lot of things. And how do we incorporate AI into our teaching, and how it's going to be changing the student exams and our grading and stuff like that. These are deep and complicated questions. And when I saw they had published this article, I'm also going to be linking the article down below so that you can have a thorough read through it. And I'm just going to be skimming through it because I don't know if I will be able to cut what I have previously said about the survey, because I was not going to be talking much about. I would just leave you browse through it and see for yourself. So I'll see, but in a way, maybe it's better you just have your own reading and make your own opinion. And what they are going saying, there are five bullet points. It's a shorter article, and what they are saying is that AI is going to be a tool for designers, and I do see that. Maybe it's into creating a pattern or into grading a pattern, that and in incorporating and creating many sizes. AI will most probably be able to help designers do that, but they will also help people who need customizing their own pattern. And this is the third point. It's the same idea, helping people either grade or transform a pattern to their own need, or grade and offer more sizes to everyone when you are a pattern designer. And this is a very positive impact of AI, because it will help with the calculations and everything that are not that interesting maybe to when you are a pattern designer and you are a creative mind, and all of these calculations are not necessarily what is of some interest to you. And as a knitter, you don't want to spend a lot of time doing math to adjust the pattern. And maybe this one you like a lot and you can't knit it to your size, to your gauge, to your yarn, and you would like to adapt it, and it's complicated. And if these tools are going to be helping people do that, I think it's a good thing. The second bullet point they are using is increasing accessibility. And I do agree with that a lot. Translating in many languages, using tools that are, or making patterns more accessible with a specific way of writing patterns so that they can be used by all the assistive technologies that people with disabilities or accessibility problems use, and making all of these patterns accessible to a larger group of people. I'm all for that too. And making patterns or files or written PDFs accessible, it's something that you need to be thinking about, and it's not something that you can just do like that. And I will try to find it again. If I know I've saved it on Instagram, and it's alive on Instagram, that Making Stories had made long ago, over a year ago, I think, with someone who is an accessibility specialist, and I thought it was very eye-opening and extremely interesting to her talking about accessibility into the knitting world. And I'm also quite involved into accessibility, teaching how to make accessible files to my students, and it's not easy. It's not easy. Just say that. So if AI can come there and help people make the files more accessible, I'm all for it. So there are two drawbacks, as far as I can say. The two last bullet points are more drawbacks from what I understand. It's creative rights. That's a real serious question. And it's also a very serious question when you come to teaching and student production and what they write and how they write it, and have they checked where it's coming from, or the bibliography or the webography. And students don't think that I've been working for almost more than 40 years in a field and I don't know the literature. And when I sometimes see things in papers, student papers, and I feel, I've never heard of that, and I look for it and I don't find any reference. You know, AI, the way it's built, it can't tell you, I don't know, just Google it. For now, at least for now. So when it can't answer your question, it makes up an answer anyway, and sometimes it's very, very chewed upon many pieces of information that it's glued together and it's completely wrong. And so first that, and second, all the rights that are linked to everything that AI is ingesting and the way it gives it back to you. And it's a whole other field of exploration right now. And AI, a lot of time, all of the models for now use data that may sometimes be copyrighted and they do not give the credits. So that's one point where it has to evolve and get better. And also what they point out, the last bullet point, is that it could lead to less creativity and versatility. And I would say, and maybe we haven't waited for AI for that, but AI will maybe increase that. Everything is the same. Very little place for very different type of patterns or productions or things like that. It will level out and uniformize. I'm not sure it's an English word. Make uniform and all alike everything. And I think it's a problem because to me, life is in diversity. And creation is also in the diversity, and art and culture and everything needs diversity. Of course, I won't be knitting things from some people because I just don't like what they make. No problem, because if you do like, you are very happy they are here. But if the majority asks for things that they get through AI and people using AI to be making patterns and everything is the same, I'm not sure it's a good thing. So these are the two dangers to me of AI entering the creative world and the knitting and crocheting and arts and crafts community is one, intellectual property, and two, not losing all the diversity and not going to a very homogeneous type of production. Okay, so that's all I wanted to be talking about. I may be talking about a couple things that I used to be talking about in my Woolly News series. And one is, who am I knitting with? Some of you have asked me to bring it back. So I'm not always doing it depending on the time I have to be recording, but I'm not on a rush tonight. So I will talk about some music. The first one is Kid Loco. The one CD I have is Prelude to a Grand Love Story. Kid Loco is a French musician. His name is Jean-Luc Prieur. I will write down the info and his information and make some and all the links to the different websites I've found about him. So he's a French electronic musician. His songs are in English. And once again, it's a very happy music. Calm and happy music that you can be listening to whenever you are knitting and you don't need and you are not running intervals, for example, or you're not angry or you are not going to bed. Okay, so that first one is the one I have been listening to a lot. The second one is, maybe we can show that one, which is not going to be blinding. Yeah, Dop Lemon. And Dop Lemon is Australian. He's Angus Stone, and I knew him from the duet he was doing with his sister, and I'm looking for her name. It was Angus and Julia. And I have to say that I prefer what he does now, because he kind of was toned down by when he was doing his duet with his sister. I prefer, so I have this one, which is Rose Pink Cadillac. I have this one, which is Kimosabi. And this one, which is Smooth Big Cat. Let's try not to blind you out. He's done some other CDs, but they are not available right now, or they are available at a very, very expensive price. So I haven't bought them. You can listen to that in your online service of choice. This is very calm music, ballads and stuff like that. I love his voice. I love his voice. And I like a lot what he's doing. When I first got his CDs and when I first came across him, because I knew Angus and his sister, but I was not much interested into what they were doing. And at some point, I'm not sure how I came across, and I listened and I said, oh, that's interesting. And when I looked into who Dop Lemon was, I discovered he was, okay. I like what he does much better. So once again, you can listen to that when you are knitting or when you are having a breakfast on a Sunday morning. So these are the ones I've been knitting with recently. One other piece of information, if I can have your attention just a little bit longer. First, we've been talking about lipsticks with Lisa, and she is Soulful Spinner, and I will link her channel down below. And also Lorien, who is Yarn Loves Turtle. And we've been talking about lipstick and red lipstick, and with Lisa, she said that, of course, I was referencing my lipsticks first in the description box, but nobody ever talked about that. And when I stopped, nobody ever talked about it either. So I just stopped referencing the lipsticks. And I've been going through a long phase where I was having allergies to my lips, so I had stopped wearing the lipsticks. But now I'm feeling better and I'm back into wearing red lipsticks. And I was using at the time Lisa Eldridge lipsticks. I still have them, but they are too old now. So I just kept them because they are just beautiful objects, but I don't wear them any longer. And I'm wearing mostly MAC Cosmetics lipsticks. I love the quality. They have a huge range of colors, of textures, of compositions, from something that is very matte and that will last for, they say 12 hours, but I don't know, at least all morning through lunch. And they also have more comfortable versions, and this one doesn't exist any longer. But that's the problem with MAC. Some of their lipstick colors just go away, and some of their other products, they're changing over time. And when one of them is your favorite and it disappears, so I still have a bit of this one. This one is Mangrove, and I've seen that they have a new corally red in their new line. So when mangrove is done and I don't have any is out, I don't have any more left. I is completely panned, as real real beauty YouTubers say. I will buy this new one or another corally matte color corally red that I like. And the next things is that I went, as the um, weather was being a bit better, I went to my summer perfume, my summer fragrance, which is Chergui by Serge Lutens, and I will attach up there the video and I will link it down below. The video I made it, I think it was last summer, about which fragrances am I wearing with my knits. And of course, I have to tell you, I don't spray fragrance onto my knits at all. And as you have seen, for example, this morning I was having a knitted t-shirt or sweater, a knitted scarf, a knitted jacket, so I can't spray on myself. So I just spread it on my t-shirt that is underneath my sweater and on my jeans, on my pants. So I don't spray at all on my knits. And this is the one that I've been using for a long time. So I usually go through a bottle per year. I bought that one at the end of last summer, or at the beginning of last summer, I don't recall exactly. My son's work has the option to buy perfumes at very discounted prices, because these ones are quite the big one, the big bottle ones. This is 100 ml, I think. It's not written. It should be written. I think it's the 100 milliliters bottle, and it's over 200 euros, so it's quite expensive, and they have it for about a bit more than half price, not quite half, but just a bit over half price. So it's very interesting. So now, and they carry Serge Lutens, which is not quite, it's easy to find on their own website, but you don't usually have them in the big Sephora's or other type of department store that carries beauty products. And yeah, so I've moved to Chergui, and it's a very dry, and I like spicy type of fragrances, and it's a very dry and warm. Chergui is a wind in North Africa, and dry and warm and earthy scent that is extremely comforting to me. Okay, so that's gonna be it for today. It's a bit late, so I still have other things to be doing today before I call it a day. So I'm gonna stop here. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope this video is finding you well, and I hope you are able to place joy and happiness into your knitting and into your life, because if you can't, it's not coming all by itself, just by magic. We do have to work on that, and working through placing joy and happiness into our life can be achieved through our knitting. So I do hope you are able to knit lots of happy and joyful little stitches, and if you can't do it for yourself, do it for other people and send all these little stitches to other people. And so I'm sending you all my sparkling and happy little stitches over to you. I thank you very, very, very much for being here with me, and I hope I will see you next time. Un, deux, trois, quatre, cinq. Cinq. Top. So I'm going to be, weather is not on Facebook. The first piece of news I want to be talking about is that Espace Tricot, let me find my file. Okay, so Ramses is next to me. Maybe he's gonna stay for a bit, or maybe he's gonna move elsewhere. Just don't show us your bottom. He's snuggling against the microphone. I'm afraid you've heard that. Anyway, and if you're subscribed to my channel, you are notified when I made well. And if you are subscribed to my channel, you will be and if you are notified. And if you are subscribed, Kid Loco is a French electronic musician. I have his name right next here. Where are you? So Dob Lemon is an Australian, and let me get my things straight.